They didn't empower you. They trained you to be predictable. You were praised for being smart, for being polite, for being so mature for your age. But they didn't realize every praise was a program. Every good job came with a silent contract. Keep acting this way, and you'll keep getting approval. And you obeyed, because praise feels safe. It feels warm. It feels like love. But here's the truth. You weren't growing. You were being coded, hooked on validation, hooked on applause, hooked on the feeling that you were only good when someone else said you were. So now, you second-guess your edge. You dilute your truth. You avoid discomfort because being liked still feels like survival. Cold mind sees through it. You weren't raised for strength. You were trained for agreeability. Praise doesn't just shape behavior. It installs dependence, and that's why you still hesitate, even when you're right. Praise trains you to perform, not to think. You think praise made you confident, that being told you're so good built your self-worth. But cold mind sees what really happened. Praise didn't validate you. It programmed you. Every time someone said, "Good job," your brain received a signal. This is the path to safety. This is the version of me they want. This is who I must keep being. So you learned to perform, not to express, not to challenge, not to lead. You learned to scan the room before speaking, to soften your edge before sharing your truth, to make sure what you say won't make them uncomfortable, because discomfort equals loss of praise equals danger. This is how control was installed, not through fear, through feedback, because nothing reshapes a child faster than conditional warmth. And the smarter you were, the more precise the conditioning. You didn't need rules. You just needed a look, a silence, a sigh, and your nervous system did the rest. Now, as an adult, you can't make decisions without wondering, will they approve? Will I sound too harsh? What if I'm misunderstood? You call it empathy, but it's really praise addiction in disguise, because you don't ask, is this true? You ask, will they like this version of me? And just like that, you're no longer leading. You're performing a role written by childhood rewards. They didn't need to punish you to make you compliant. They just gave you enough praise to make obedience feel like love. The praise loop, approval became the frame, and you stayed inside it. Every time you did something right, they smiled, clapped, said you were so good, and your system lit up. Praise became a signal. Approval became a drug. And before you knew it, you weren't doing things because they were true. You were doing them because they were rewarded. That's the loop. You act. You're praised. You feel safe. You repeat the behavior. Anything outside that frame, you avoid. Because if praise equals safety, then disapproval equals danger. So now you hesitate when no one's watching. You freeze when feedback is missing. You water down truth because, what if this version of me isn't liked? You don't need someone to control you. You've been pre-wired to self-limit in the name of staying likable. And the worst part? You think it's emotional intelligence. You think it's being considerate. But it's not. It's fear, in a socially acceptable costume. Because when praise is your fuel, you only move in directions that guarantee applause. Cold mind doesn't run on approval. It runs on alignment. And alignment means you do what's right even if no one claps, especially when no one claps. But as long as you're addicted to praise, you'll never take a step that risks misunderstanding. You'll never say the thing that might disturb the comfort of the room. You'll never lead. you'll perform. You're not scared of being wrong. You're scared of being unliked. And as long as that fear owns you, the praise owns you too. Praise detox. 3 questions to break the approval loop. You don't break free from praise conditioning by becoming rebellious, or loud, or not caring what people think. Cold mind doesn't swing. It filters. It asks better questions. And it uses those questions to separate truth from programming. Here are the 3 questions that detox the approval loop. Question 1. Am I doing this because it's right, or because I know it will be praised? This one burns. Because most of what you think is good is really just safe. You speak gently, not because it's authentic, but because it's acceptable. You over-deliver, not because it's strategic, but because you want to be seen as dependable. But cold mind asks, would I still do this if no one clapped? If not, it's not yours. It's theirs. Question 2. If no one sees this, would I still follow through? Praise addicts live on the performance stage. They need an audience, even if it's just one person, one comment, one like. But precision is quiet. It doesn't require validation to operate. So ask yourself, if I sent this message, made this move, or held this boundary, and no one noticed, would I still believe it was the right move? That's sovereignty. Question 3. Can I handle being misunderstood and still stay in position? This is the real test, because praise addiction is less about applause and more about avoiding discomfort. You don't just want to be seen as good. You want to never be seen as questionable. But if clarity is your goal, then being misunderstood is part of the cost. Cold mind holds frame even when perception fractures. Because truth doesn't require explanation. It requires stamina. These questions don't just give you insight. They give you back control. They help you see how many of your decisions are driven by invisible rewards you didn't even know you were chasing. And once you break that loop, you don't become colder. You become cleaner. When your action no longer needs applause, you've just stepped into real power. She was always praised until she wasn't, and that's when she became real. Her whole life she was praised for being kind, for being clear, for always showing up the right way, and she loved it because it felt like proof. She was doing life right. She was being good. She was safe. Until the moment she made a decision that didn't match their expectations. She didn't explain, didn't soften, didn't ask for input. She simply said, "This is what I'm doing," and walked away. And that's when it broke. The room went silent. The compliments stopped. She was called cold, distant, disappointing. And for the first time, she felt the weight of not being liked. At first, it burned. The urge to explain was strong. To say, "I didn't mean it that way." To soften the edge she finally earned. But then something stronger came through. Relief. Because she saw the truth. All those years, she hadn't been respected. She had been maintained. As long as she stayed within their comfort zone, she was praised. But the moment she stepped out, she was punished. And that punishment was what exposed the contract she never agreed to sign. So she stayed silent. Let the discomfort burn. Didn't run to fix their perception. And what she found inside the silence was power. Not because they came around, but because she didn't need them to. Her worth wasn't up for debate. Not anymore. Praise built the mask, but silence broke the leash. And for the first time, she didn't need applause to move. Final message. You don't need to be praised. You just need to stop asking for permission. You were trained to seek approval, not because you were weak, but because that's how the system kept you close. Praise made you feel seen. And slowly, being seen became the requirement for moving forward. But here's what Cold Mind knows. If your clarity depends on applause, you'll never be clear. Because the moment the room goes silent, your momentum dies. That's not leadership. That's leash holding. The real shift happens when you stop waiting for a nod to trust your own direction. When you no longer need to be understood to remain unmoved. When you can say what needs to be said, and not flinch when the room doesn't reward it. This isn't about being cold. It's about being uncaptured. And once you uninstall praise dependency, you don't become unkind. You become unowned. You don't become arrogant. You become unshakable. In a silence they can't reframe. In the next video, we'll break down you don't owe anyone your inner world. How to reclaim your internal space from a world that feels entitled to it. Subscribe. Say what's true without needing applause.